All right. Good morning, everyone. So, are there any questions or concerns pertaining to anything we discussed yesterday? Okay. So, in particular, towards the end of yesterday's lecture, we proved Euler's formula, right? And thereafter, well, we noted that one of the consequences of Euler's formula is that although you can have a planar graph with two different planar embeddings, what I mean is they may not be facially isomorphic as we called them. This is not standard terminology, but I just cooked it up, right? So you can have two embeddings which are not facially isomorphic, but what will be true due to Euler's formula is that they will have the same number of faces. Okay, so the number of faces for a planar graph is a graph invariant. Okay, and in particular, the formula, the way I like to remember, is the number of vertices plus the number of faces is equal to the number of edges plus 2. Right, this is for a connected plane graph. If your graph is not connected, then you can generalize this formula, and the number of components of the graph will play some role here, but that's easy to figure out. I won't tell you. You can try on your own. So maybe I'll put a do it yourself. What's the formula if the graph is disconnected?
Sir, I think then it will be V plus F will be equal to V plus F will be equal to E plus C plus 1, where C is the number of components.
Yeah, it's possible. It will at least be consistent with this formula when the graph is connected. So maybe that is the formula. But anyways, I'll leave it as a do it yourself. I don't remember the formula myself.
Actually,
Okay.
I guessed it from dimension of cycle space, because for a disconnected graph,
Right.
you give
Exactly. Yeah.
dimension of cycle space. Yeah.
Right. Good. All right. So that's yesterday. So I want to continue discussing consequences of Euler's formula. And the one I want to focus on is the sparsity of simple planar graphs. Okay. So recall that a graph is planar if and only if its underlying simple graph is planar, right? And in particular, if you take a planar graph, take any planar graph, I don't know, you can't get a bound on the number of edges because you can keep adding multiple edges as many as you want. You can keep adding loops, right? So it's not possible to prove an upper bound on the number of edges with respect to the number of vertices. However, intuitively, it makes sense that if your graph is planar and simple, then you probably cannot add too many edges. Or probably you cannot have too many edges. For example, in this graph, how many edges can you add? You have to keep the graph simple and planar. So I want to ask you, how many edges do you think you can add here?
Sir, I think I have an argument to this. So basically,
No, I just want to know the number. How many edges can you add?
in this example, I think it will be 3.
3, right? You can add one edge here. You can add another edge like this. You can add a third edge like this. And now you are not able to add any more edges. Why are you not able to add any more edges? Can you give me a short answer? Can someone give me a short answer for this?
This can be proved using Jordan-Karp theorem.
I don't want to. I want a shorter explanation.
Sir,
If you look at
was the
this
question?
drawing, yeah.
I just
Why
joined
can't you
for-
add any more edges to this graph to keep it planar and simple?
Sir, okay. Any more links? You mean?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
You have to keep it simple, so the edges will be links in particular. They can't be
Oh.
loops.
Okay.
You'll get K5, right?
Sure. That is one way to look at it. You will somehow create K5, a subdivision of K5, I assume.
Sir, I have a question just.
Hmm.
So I think our answer is wrong. It will be 4 because I am seeing that there can still be added one edge.
Yeah, where? I'll
So
label the vertices 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where is your edge?
between 3 and 4.
Between 3 and 4, there is already an edge. I added it.
Okay. Sorry, sir. yeah.
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 Okay. So you can't add any more edges. And I want you all to think about why. I want a simple explanation for it. Okay. All right. So we will prove a corollary of Euler's formula.
So is the argument like adding any more edge will create a K5?
That is one way to do it, but I want a more intuitive explanation.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Sir, every face is a triangle here.
Every face is a triangle. Right. And that is actually crucial. I mean, we haven't proved that, but because every face is a triangle, you are not able to add any more edges. And that can be proved rigorously. In particular, every face has degree 3. And once this happens, you cannot add any more edges to get a simple planar graph. Okay. So we will prove the following. For a simple planar graph with at least 3 vertices, the number of edges is at most 3 times the number of vertices minus 6. Okay. What's more important than the formula is that it's linear. The number of edges is linear in the number of vertices in particular, right? This is the exact upper bound. But what I want you to note is that it's a linear formula, right? And that is the reason planar graphs are often called sparse graphs. I mean, they are a kind of sparse graphs. So simple planar graphs are sparse, right? Because in general, you can have quadratically many edges, but in this case, you can't, right? So how do we prove this?
So can we prove it by induction?
You probably can, but generally speaking, you don't want to use induction if you don't need induction. Because if you can get a direct proof, then induction only complicates things and kind of obscures the true picture. So I would recommend not using induction if you can see a direct proof.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So I want to use any ideas, any other ideas apart from induction? You can try an inductive proof later.
So, can you show the graph again? Okay.
So the argument someone gave here was that every face is a triangle. Each face is bounded by a triangle. In particular, the degree of each face in this case is equal to 3.
Yeah, we can use Euler's formula here.
Okay.
So means let us assume the maximum number of faces be f max or something.
Okay.
So in that case, the number of edges must be 3f by 2.
Okay. Why?
Because every face means every face is basically covered by a triangle, right? And every edge takes part in 2 of the faces. That's
Okay.
why.
Okay.
So we get f equals to 3f by 2 minus n plus 2.
Okay.
And
I
then
see.
we can, yeah.
So
Then we
you are
can
on the
substitute.
right track. So that's basically, I mean, so this is one way to go about it. So let me first put down the simplest fact that you used in your argument. The simplest fact is the following. So let's take a planar embedding of the graph G. Okay. And I think the simplest fact you used is if you add up the degrees of the faces, you get 2 times the number of edges of the graph. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the dual handshake lemma. Does everybody agree with this part? Okay. Now, I claim that this quantity has a certain lower bound. Can anybody tell me what this lower bound could be? Every face will have length at least 3 in a planar graph. Do you agree? Because so this is a do-it-yourself problem.
Because basically any face is bounded by a cycle, and the cycle must be simple cycle.
Not quite. We have not said that the graph is non-separable. So that is not true. But despite that, you can prove that every face has length at least 3 or degree at least 3. Each face has degree at least 3. And the reason you can say this is because the number of vertices is at least 3, because otherwise you can have counter examples like K2. Okay. K2, there is only one face, and the degree of this face is 2 because you look at the length of the closed walk. Or in other words, you count the number of edges, and cut edges have to be counted twice. And so here there is only one edge, which is a cut edge. So the length is, the degree is 2, right? So this is only one face of degree 2. Okay. So you can prove that every face has degree at least 3. So I can write down 3 times the number of faces of the graph. Okay. This is because of this. And now we can use Euler's formula. The number of faces is the number of edges minus the number of vertices plus 2. Right? Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So what do we have? We have 3 times the number of edges this is Euler minus 3 times the number of vertices plus 6 is less than equal to 2 times the number of edges. Okay, and now it's clear that the number of edges is less than equal to 3 times the number of vertices minus 6. Okay, any questions or concerns? And when will equality hold? So that's my next question. When does equality hold?
If every face is a triangle, right?
Every face has degree 3. Exactly.
Everywhere degree 3, yeah.
And each face has degree 3.
That is clear from the way we derive the bound.
Exactly, exactly. The only place where we had an inequality is this place, and the only time this will be an equality is when each face has degree exactly equal to 3.
Exactly equal to 3, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now if you go back to our previous example, it makes sense. Every face has degree exactly 3, so you will not be able to add any more edges, right? Okay.
So basically,
so, yeah, go ahead.
So basically, every face degree exactly 3 is equivalent to saying that every face is a triangle, right?
Let me think about this. Every face has degree Yeah. You have to be.
Provided
see.
that the graph has no cuttages.
Right. In fact, I think you can prove that the graph will not have any cut edges. So yeah, so actually you can prove this. So let me just write down some definitions. I
No,
think the answer,
but
yeah,
sir,
go ahead.
a simple planar graph may have a cottage.
Right,
It
but
may have a
then,
cottage,
but
but
then what
it
will
does not
happen
have a
is,
cottage. Yeah.
but if there is a cut edge, then you will get a face that has degree more than 3.
Yeah, exactly.
If you try to, yeah, you can prove it rigorously. Okay.
Okay.
So the only time you will have every face as degree 3 is actually when every face will be bounded by a cycle. You can actually prove that the graph will be at least 2 connected.
So basically,
Yeah.
when every face has degree exactly 3, that means the graph has no cottage. One can show it.
You can prove that, yes. In
Yeah,
fact,
Yeah,
it
and
once
cannot
you
have
prove
an,
that
yeah,
graph has no cottage, then you can say that every face is a triangle.
yeah, yeah,
Every face is a triangle.
a
yeah.
cut edge cannot participate in a cycle, right? Then we can directly show that.
Yeah, that's right. So you can show that there is some face that will have greater length than 3, and that will be a contradiction. Right, so I'll probably put an exercise for this. So let's just put some definition. A simple connected plane graph in which all faces have degree 3 is called a plane triangulation. And there is a reason it's called a plane triangulation, because you can actually prove that every face will be bounded by a triangle, in particular by a cycle, and that cycle will have length 3, right? So what we have here is a plane triangulation. Okay? And right. So by our previous corollary, 10.21, if you have a plane triangulation, you cannot add any more edges to it. So no simple spanning supergraph of a triangulation, I mean a plane triangulation, is planar. Okay? And in particular, we can add something to this corollary here. We can probably just add that equality holds if and only if each planar embedding of the graph G is a plane triangulation, right? Because if any embedding has a face of length greater than of degree greater than 3, then you will be able to add an edge there. So this bound works actually for every single embedding, right? Because you took a planar graph and then you took a particular embedding of it. Okay? And for that particular embedding, it must be true that each degree has face each face has degree 3, but then it holds for every single embedding, right? Because your
But sir,
argument holds for every embedding. Yeah, go ahead.
so I have a question. So why doesn't suffice to check for a single planar embedding of G whether it is a plane triangulation or not?
It does. It does. If a single embedding is a plane triangulation, then by this corollary, every embedding is a plane triangulation.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
It must be.
Exactly, because the corollary does not look at an embedding; it looks for every planar graph, a planar simple graph.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good
Basically,
point.
the corollary is independent of the planar embedding we are choosing. That's
Exactly. Right?
Okay.
And because of this reason, plane triangulations are often
basically we can say that. So basically, we can say that equality holds if and only if G has a plane triangulation.
right.
Plane triangulation. Yeah.
Right.
Am I right?
So triangulations are also known as maximal planar graphs. They are those planar graphs, so simple planar graphs, where you cannot add any more edges. Right? So they are maximal in the so long as you restrict to simple. Right? Otherwise, they won't be maximal because you can keep adding edges. Okay? Good.
Also, the
Mhm.
means
Yes.
vertex should be fixed. Means we cannot add any vertices.
Yes, yes, it is maximal in the sense that you are not going to, yeah, you are not allowed to add any edge vertices. So this is not, I mean, this is just a term, this is just a definition that plane triangulations are also called maximal planar graphs. The reason being that you cannot add any more edges to keep the planarity property. But yeah, it is implicit that you are not allowed to add vertices.
Yeah. Because otherwise you can always add vertices and then
Yeah, you can always add a vertex inside a triangle and keep making it bigger, right?
Okay. And
Okay.
sir, also have a
Mhm.
question. So can you just scroll the bit up?
Yeah.
So here you written by 10.21. By
Yeah.
10.21, I think it would be no simple spanning proper supergraph.
No simple spanning. Yeah, you're
Proper
right.
supergraph.
Yeah,
Proper supergraph.
spanning. Yeah, proper supergraph. You're right.
Proper supergraph. Because otherwise the triangulation is planar. That's
Yeah,
why.
yeah. You need to add. Yeah, that's right.
Proper
Mhm.
supergraph.
Yeah. Good. All right. Any other questions or concerns? So there is another small consequence of this. Now you can derive from this. So maybe I'll give it to you as a do-it-yourself problem. Deduce using the corollary 10.21 that we just proved that each simple planar graph has a vertex of degree at most 5. There has to be at least some vertex whose degree is at most 5. If every vertex has degree at least 6, then you can get a contradiction to corollary 10.21. That is very easy to prove. We will find this useful in the next module. Colorings. Vertex colorings. Okay? All right. Any other questions or concerns pertaining to this bound and its consequences? Now let's consider K5. How many vertices are there? 5. Number of edges in K5?
10.
10. And what is 3 times the number of vertices minus 6? Right? So this proves that K5 is non-planar because the number of edges is supposed to be less than equal to 3 times the number of vertices minus 6.
I mean not less than, more than.
Yeah.
Number of is more than 3b minus 6. Yeah.
Yeah, but therefore it is non-planar, right?
Okay.
Because by the corollary, we know that if the graph is planar, then it must satisfy this bound.
Sir, I have a question. So,
Mhm.
does this a kind of converse holds? Mean something like, suppose if G is simple planar, if G is simple graph, we don't know whether G is planar or not, but we are given a number of edges is less than or equal to 3b minus 6. Then can we say that G is planar?
You tell me. This is actually a point I wanted to talk about. You tell me. Supposing the number of edges is less than equal to 3 times the number of vertices minus 6, does this imply that the graph is planar?
Yeah, exactly. This is my point.
Yeah,
This is my question.
I'm asking you to answer it or anyone else. I don't want to answer it. So go ahead. Yeah.
Sir, I have no idea.
No, think about it. Make an example. Try to make a counter example.
Sir, K33 is counter example, right?
K33 is already a counter example. Is it?
Yes.
K33. Let's see. So how many edge vertices? 6. Number of edges is 9. And 3 times the number of vertices minus 6 is exactly how much is this? 12, right? Right. So K33 is a counter example.
Yes, I got it, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it. Means K33 is not planar, but E is less than or equal to 3 minus 6. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Right.
Sir, I think, means there is a natural means intuition behind why this result will not be true. What I just claimed this because otherwise we will have a simple characterization of planar graphs. The a simple graph G
Yeah,
is planar
but
if and only V is less than or equal to 3 minus 6, provided the graph is connected.
yeah, but then you are using the fact that you know that there is no such straight characterization except for things like Krutowski's theorem, which are more complicated.
Yeah, exactly,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, it is a way to justify it, but it's not a proof, right?
No. Means
Yeah.
Obviously.
Right?
Yeah.
And in fact, what you can do is rather than, I mean, K33 is a very specific graph. Take any non-planar graph and keep adding vertices like this. For example, take K5 and you add more vertices, you will be able to satisfy the bound eventually, but the graph will be non-planar because there is a K5 sitting somewhere. Okay. Good. So what about K33? How can we show that K33 is non-planar using something like this? So do it yourself. K33 is bipartite, right? So what I want you to do is for bipartite graphs, I want you to prove a similar result, but a stronger result. Okay, so there is a stronger bound that you can prove in the case of bipartite graphs. So I want you to do that. So prove a stronger result similar to 10.21 for planar bipartite simple planar graphs. Okay, and then use 1 to prove that or to deduce that K33 is non-planar. Okay.
So should we get a numerical bound?
Yes. Get a numerical bound that is also tight in the sense that you can get examples that hold it, that satisfy it with equality, right?
Okay.
Just
so
like
will there be a similar bound for K-parted graphs?
That is a good point. So think about it. Okay. So I don't know the answer. Can this be generalized to K-partite graphs? Right? What is K-partite? You take K parts of the vertices and all the edges have to go between these K parts. But there cannot be any edge with both ends in the same part. Okay? So I won't write down the definition. This is a try it yourself problem. Okay? If not to K-partite graphs, is there any different generalization? Is there a different generalization? So instead of K-partite graphs, maybe there is something else you want to look at. I don't know. Okay?
Sir.
Yeah.
So I haven't just argument for part 1. Just I do not know whether it's correct or not. So for
no, so I don't want to, because it's a do-it-yourself problem, I would rather have everybody think about it and you can post your argument on Piazza.
No. I am not saying my solution.
Okay.
I am just saying a bit or clue, like something like, so for a simple graph, we're using plane triangulation. So in a plane triangulation, boundary of a face is a triangle. But such triangles cannot appear in bipartite graph because
Yeah,
bipartite
that's
graph
it.
doesn't have.
Let's stop there. Okay, good.
Okay.
So that's that's a good enough hint. So yeah, so triangles cannot be there in bipartite graphs, and now everyone can think about it. Okay, good. All right, so you're on the right track. Keep going, and you should be able to get it.
No,
Okay.
is my approach right?
Yes, yes, it is.
Is it right?
All right. Yes, it is correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns pertaining to Euler's formula and its consequences that we have discussed so far? Okay. If not, I want to move to the next topic, which is Tutt's theory of bridges of a cycle. We will use this to prove Wagner's theorem eventually, right? So that's one of the motivations, but the theory itself is quite beautiful. So I want to focus on that for now. Okay. So I want to remind you of a discussion we had in the earlier module about separating vertices. Let's go to separating vertices. Okay. What is the example I want to look at? Yeah, I want to look at this example. Right, so we had a definition, we had an intuitive way of thinking about separating vertices, that I wanted you to imagine your graph using a 3D model where every vertex is a bead and every edge is a string. And then you use a scissor, a pair of scissors, to cut around each vertex. Okay? And in particular, if you look at this vertex V6, it is not a cut vertex, but it is a separating vertex, because when you cut using scissors, your remaining graph will break into two parts. The first part is called 1 and the second part is called 2. Okay? And then there is a vertex itself, but that is obvious because you are cutting around that vertex. So I'm looking at the rest of the graph after cutting around this vertex, right? And there are two parts. That single edge has become one part, and the rest of the graph in this case is a second part. Okay? And because we got at least two parts, we call V6 a separating vertex. Okay, and then there was a formal definition, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to look at that right now. I want to go back to this intuition. Are there any questions or concerns about how we defined separating vertices using this intuition? Does everybody remember this? I hope. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So now let's take that intuition to define something else. Okay. I'll make an example here. So I'm going to draw a graph and I want you to focus on a particular cycle. Let's see, how many vertices do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay. And let me put some other stuff in this example. Okay. Maybe I'll also put some multiple edge. Why not? Okay, good. Okay, so I want you to look at this graph. And in particular, I want you to focus on this cycle. Let's call the vertices, it's a black colored vertices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's a cycle of length 9. What we are going to do is we are going to again imagine this graph as a 3D model, like we did in the case of separating vertices, where every vertex is a bead and every edge is a string. Okay, which ties the two beads, or in the case of a loop, it's tied at the same bead twice. Okay, and we are going to use a pair of scissors to cut around this cycle. So what I want to do is I want to cut this cycle out of the graph, out of my 3D model. Okay, so how would I do that? Can anybody tell me how would I cut this cycle out of my 3D model?
So basically every edge which does not belong to the cycle, I have to cut that edge.
Every edge that does not belong to the cycle. Are you sure? What about this edge?
No, means not belong to the cycle, mean the edges which have exactly one endpoint in the cycle.
At least one endpoint. Edges that have at least one endpoint in the cycle, but they are not edges of the cycle itself.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, means so basically the if the edge is not a loop, then you can say that particular edge has exactly one endpoint in the cycle.
Right, right. And let me actually make another parallel edge to make things more clear. So the cycle is a set of edges, right? So maybe I should first mark my cycle with a set of edges, because okay, so maybe I'm going to color the cycle blue because it is a set of edges, and if I have multiple edges, I cannot just say it is a set of vertices in sequence, right? Okay, so maybe this is my blue colored cycle. So for every edge that has at least one end on the cycle, but which is not part of the cycle, I have to cut around that edge, right? So, or another way to think about it is, for every vertex of the cycle, I will cut around that vertex at edges that are not in the cycle, that edges that are not blue in this drawing. Okay, so at vertex 1, I will make 2 cuts. At vertex 2, I will again make 2 cuts. At vertex 3, I will have to cut the same loop twice at 2 different points. At vertex 4, I have 2 cuts again. At vertex 5, I have a single cut, right? Vertex 6, I have 3 cuts. Vertex 7, I have 1 cut. Vertex 8, I have 2 cuts. At vertex 9, I have 2 cuts. Is that right?
So vertex 9, it will be 3 cuts.
Oh, 3 cuts. Thank you. 3 cuts. Good.
And also you made a mistake in vertex 3. There will be another cut.
3. Oh, yes, you're right. There'll be a third cut here. Good.
Cut, yeah.
Good. Okay. All right. Okay. So if you do this, how many pieces does the remaining graph break into? Of course, there is a cycle which we cut out, but how many other pieces does the graph break into?
I think in this example, it would be 7.
7. Anybody else? Does everybody agree with 7? I don't know. I have not counted it. Okay, let's mark them. There is one piece with a single vertex and 3 edges. There is another piece. Okay. There is a third piece. Actually, let me call them by names. So let's call this B1, B2, B3, There is B4, which is a parallel edge with B5. Then there is a B6, and there is a B7 here, and I think there is at least 8 pieces. I see 8 pieces. Did I miss anything? Am I double counting any piece?
No, it would be 8. Actually, I missed that. Means B5 and B6, I counted them as single piece.
Right,
That's why-
right, because it's
yeah,
drawn like that. It's the drawing is misleading.
Yeah,
It is
drawing
not a
is very
single
misleading.
piece.
Yeah,
Exactly.
drawing
Drawing can be misleading.
misleading.
So we are getting 8 pieces.
Yeah.
Okay. These pieces are called the bridges of this cycle. Okay. These pieces are called the bridges of the cycle. I'll put it in double quotes because this is not a formal definition. I'll write down a formal definition once you have this intuition. Are there any questions about this intuition or intuitive way of thinking about bridges? There is a problem. You see, there are pieces which graph theoretically don't make sense. What does it mean? B4 is a piece. B4 is not even an edge. It is just a piece of string with no vertices, right? So from a graph theoretical point of view, it's not a very rigorous definition. I mean, unless we introduce a lot more terminology, right? So this is an intuitive way of thinking about it, but we need to write down a formal graph theoretical definition that will make more sense. Okay. All right. So G is a graph. C is a cycle. So we are going to partition. We are going to partition the edges of the graph that are not edges of the cycle as follows. And each part of the partition can be thought of as one bridge. Okay. So first of all, you have bridges that don't have any vertices except vertices of the cycle itself. So for example, B3 is going to be one bridge which has one edge and a single vertex. That vertex will be called a vertex of attachment for that bridge. We will come to vertices of attachment later again. Okay. B4 and B5 are also bridges that are just single edges with two vertices that are the ends of that edge. Okay. So one kind of part is called the trivial bridges. These are edges of the graph whose each end belongs to the cycle. Okay. So what are the trivial bridges here? B3, B4, B5,
B7.
B7. Thank you. Okay. Are these all the trivial bridges? We are looking at all the edges of the graph that are not edges of the cycle, but each end is on the cycle, right? So you can think of them as chords of the cycle. You might have used this term in one of your assignment problems. Maybe when you talked about induced cycles generate the cycle space, you might have thought about chords of a cycle. So this is the same concept in case you thought about it. Okay. So these are also called chords of the cycle C. Okay. And then you have the more interesting bridges, which are called the non-trivial bridges. How do we define them? Can anybody tell me how would you define the non-trivial bridges?
I think it would be edges of E of G minus E of C, such that at least one edge has at least one endpoint not in the cycle.
At least one edge has at least one endpoint.
So all these edges are called bridges, or
That's
the
a good point.
components are called bridges?
Right. So far we have not written down a formal definition of the bridges, right? The intuitive definition is the pieces you get when you cut by the scissors. But when you take the pieces, you also have to take the vertices that are connected to those pieces, right? Otherwise, you can't get a formal graph theoretical definition, right? So the bridges, for example, this vertex along with these three edges is one bridge.
Okay, got it.
These four vertices along with these three edges is one bridge. So how would you define this? I don't think the definition Aranya suggested is strict enough.
So basically, sir, in this example, every trivial bridge has exactly one edge.
Trivial bridges will always have exactly one edge.
Yeah. Trivial bridges will always have exactly one edge. But other
That's
than
right.
trivial bridges, means non-trivial bridges, they have more than one edge.
Not, yeah, they may
But
have
I'm
more than
saying
one edge. Yeah.
They may have more than one edge. I mean, they may have one edge. Non-trivial bridge may have exactly one edge, but it may
Right.
also have more than one edge.
Right, exactly.
Also
That's
more than
right.
one edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For example, if I drew one edge here, that would be a non-trivial bridge as per our definition.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, because both ends are not on the, yeah, but I did not draw that. Okay, fine.
Yeah, but a trivial bridge will always have exactly one edge.
That's right. So how would you define the non-trivial bridges? Anybody? I want a rigorous graph theoretical definition of non-trivial bridges. And I want you to give it to me.
Sir, I have a definition. Means I don't know whether my definition is.
Yeah, go ahead. It's fine.
So basically, so if C is the cycle, basically the bridges we are defining, or all the bridges are defined with respect to a given cycle.
Yes.
So the cycle is C. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we remove
remove what? I can't hear you.
No, means
Okay,
I just
okay,
stopped.
okay.
I'm just thinking.
Yeah, but you're right. You want to remove something. What do you want to remove? I want you to
Basically,
remove
it
something.
is, a component of G minus, a connected component of G minus C.
G minus C.
From
Okay.
that component,
G minus C, you mean vertices of C or edges of C or everything?
everything.
Okay, so I will write vertices of C, because if you remove the vertices, you also remove the edges, right? So consider a component J of G minus the vertices of C. Okay, this is good. Now can somebody else complete it? Consider any component of the graph G after deleting the vertices. So supposing this is J.
Sir, I think then that component means such a component in which that component has a vertex which is a neighbor in that cycle.
No, I want you to give me something more concise. This component along with some edges is a bridge. What are those edges?
The edges which are the crossing edges.
Yes, there is a concept for that that we have been discussing in this course. What is it?
Partial of that.
Partial of that. Yes. So for that component, the edges of J along with the edges that have exactly one end in J.
Okay, yeah. So by edges of J, we mean the edges induced on the edges of the induced subgraph on J.
Well, it's a component, so it's think of it as a graph and take all the edges of that graph.
Okay, all the graph. Okay.
Right.
And by partial of V of J, we mean the edges with one endpoint.
Exactly. One endpoint is in J.
Yeah.
And the other endpoint has to be where?
In the cycle.
It has to be on the cycle, because
It
these are
cannot be in any
components.
other component. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Otherwise, that would not be a component, right?
It will not be
Exactly.
component. Yeah.
Exactly.
Means if some edge has one endpoint in
Yeah.
J and other endpoint in some component, then basically those two components will merge into a single component.
Exactly. So these are the we had 4 trivial bridges, and our total number of bridges is 8. So we have 4 non-trivial bridges here. Okay, they are B1, B6, B2, and B8. Okay. So these are the bridges of the cycle, right? So you can think of the bridges. Each bridge is a subset of the edges of the graph that are not in the cycle that you have chosen, right? So when I say bridges, I mean bridges of this cycle. Okay. So the parts.
Sir, can you just scroll the page a bit up to the figure?
Yeah. Yeah.
So where is B1? I'm not able to see B1.
B1 is the first vertex on the top with the 3 edges. Yeah. Yeah.
B1, B6.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the parts of this partition that we have defined above are called, maybe I should make it more clear. Each part of this partition is called a bridge of C in the graph G. Okay. All right. So that's it. I think I've already exceeded the time. So I don't want to go into further concepts related to bridges, but we are going to use bridges in a very interesting way to think about planarity, right? As I told you earlier, cycles are extremely important in planarity, and in fact in all of graph theory for that matter, right? And in this particular context, for a particular cycle, its bridges are going to play an important role in deciding whether the graph is planar or not. And therefore, we will also use it to prove Wagner's theorem. And using that, you will prove Krutowski's theorem on assignment 3. I might make assignment 3 available this weekend. Okay.
So basically, assignment 3 will be posted this Saturday or Sunday, right?
I plan to, yes.
Okay. And we'll have 10 days remaining to submit.
You'll have 10 days for it. Yeah. So there will be an overlap with assignment 3 and writing exercise, but the writing exercise, you have more time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Means the writing exercise means which you gave.
Yeah, which has already been given. So there will be some overlap between the dates, right?
Okay. But on assignment 3, we will have 10 days to work on it.
Yes, 10 days. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Any questions or concerns pertaining to the definition of bridges? Right. So please go through this definition again. Make sure you have it completely clear in your mind, because we are going to be using them quite a bit in the next few lectures. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Feel free to leave the meeting. Yeah.
Okay, sir. I'm leaving, sir.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
Goodbye, sir.
Bye.
Goodbye.